I like the word tampering, especially in light of the elections. I wanted to ask Professor Chiba, when it comes to regulation, because everybody has actually spoken about regulation, South Africa is actually one of the countries that was saying AI should have rights and it should be regulated. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think we've got to be careful. So you can't regulate something that can't think for itself.
Yeah.
Okay? There's an interaction here, and I think this is where we sometimes confuse it. You know, there was this big talk about 4IR at some stage, and then some people are saying 5IR, and conceptually I tried to make the difference. 4IR was, you know, us working with and through machines, doing this. 5IR is working alongside these machines, but there's still a little bit of, there has to be human input, okay? A machine without an instruction is not going to do something unless it's programmed to do something at a certain stage. And so if we start thinking about the regulatory, what are you regulating? You're regulating its development and its use. What are those frameworks around development and use has got to sit within the ethical boundaries. Now, this is where it becomes hyper complex. Whose ethics for what, right? We've got to be careful that we don't end up with a nanny state that is so heavily regulated that our colleagues here can't do their jobs to say that this is a balanced view, an independent view around that. So what we need to do is work within parameters, right? And the regulation needs to be a discussion amongst all of us. What Nollie is not mentioning is the data she has access to is the second most sensitive and the best data in the world. The number one is your healthcare data. Number two is financial data. And if those two data, if I can get access to those two data points, don't worry about anything else. We can create almost anything that we can't even imagine right now, right? And all those points. So when we talk about the regulatory framework, I think we've got to balance this out. When we talk about accountability and transparency of algorithms, it's not about making it publicly available. We've got to have an oversight at an industry level that reports to a government level and says, this is what we're seeing, this is why we're doing it. Is this fine within some guardrails, which is a framework? Mm-hmm. The problem that I face, or I think we're going to face from a regulatory perspective, is what are we regulating? Are we regulating something that many of us can't see into the future? We know its potential. At the moment, all AI is stuck in 2022. Let's just be clear about that. There's some that is pushing forward now with websites, etc., and the use of bots to be... And guys, let's not forget, I think we've got short-term memories, most of us here. Bots were a big part of South Africa's social and economic landscape not so long ago. Let's not forget that, right? Were bots that were perpetuating lies. Remember the political dispensation that we had, right? So I think we mustn't forget that it does have huge implications. What did we learn from that, and what regulation have we put in place after that event? And this is where I think we move too slowly. I think we've got to be clear that we're never going to have a perfect framework. We've got a working framework that's got to continually be updated. So regulatory-wise, I think we've got to be, and this is where cooperation comes in. We can't just regulate financial services. We can't just regulate technology. We've got to have a more encompassing regulation around who is the end person. And regulation's important, because who is the regulator at the end trying to protect? What is the regulator trying to protect? And what is the regulatory framework trying to achieve? I've got some thoughts. I think that number one is us as ordinary citizens, and I'm going to put ordinary citizens down because I think we need to understand, in the day and age of technology, AI, etc., what are the boundaries within which we should be interacting with it? I think from a South Africa perspective, we've been quite progressive. I don't think we often acknowledge that. Think about cryptocurrencies and the stance we've taken around that. Okay, it's if Toby's making money, cool, just pay your tax, right? Toby on the capital gains around it. So there's the individual choice, but there are also the implications of understanding if you do and if you don't. And I think that's the space we have to get into. I cannot see that we can proactively regulate stuff because by the time, and let's call it out, By the time Elon Musk does something, by the time we wake up to him doing something, by the time we figure out what the implications are, is no less than 8 to 12 months. We've all adopted it. Everyone's updated their WhatsApp, everyone's got Meta AI, everyone's created cool pictures. And we go, and we run with it. So what are we going to be able to do? So what they're doing, I think we need to get much closer. We need to sit closer with our big tech companies. And unfortunately, and I think, Toby, you alluded to this, we don't need to look far, everyone, is that the world is connected, hyper-connected. Lest we forget, best data points, 3.5 months, COVID-19 had shut down the entire globe. That's a physical object that's spread around the world. So this hyper-connectedness of a system working together has to be there. And so whether we like it or not, big tech and all of us need to sit around. I think that's the one thing. I think what we're not seeing is, unfortunately, how do you regulate what my colleagues have been talking about, what I'm going to call an echo chamber. An echo chamber is essentially, I like something, so everything that I get is on that. Whether it's voice notes, whether it's the news, whether it's funny video clips on TikTok. Guys, my biggest concern is that we've lost the ability to read. Everything is in 30-second bite-sized chunks that we continually scroll past. That screen time is telling. There's less text, more videos. And the more videos, the quicker you can slip stuff in. And that's where I think the bigger problem is. So from a regulatory perspective, for the first time, I think all 4 sectors of the economy have to come together. And I think it's going to be the people that pull this together that's going to matter. Who should be doing this? And I'm going to say it needs to be pushed by people at Davos as an example. They've got the biggest muscle to be able to do that. And I think a serious conversation needs to be had around this. Where are you going with this? How might we be able to put the guardrails? I'm not stopping competitive advantage. Actually, we shouldn't. I'm not stopping social discourse. We shouldn't. But how do we make sure that we don't lose the essence of what we are as a democratic world for most part of it? And I think that's what we've got to start doing.